Good morning. Uh, so I've been talking about suffering. Um, so the first talk I talked about what is suffering. Talked about suffering, dukkha. Dukkha is a Pali word translated incapable of satisfying or not able to bear or withstand anything, and always changing, incapable of fully fulfilling us or making us happy. So, so it was Buddha was like a doctor, so so he put it our the nature of life as like a doctor diagnosing the issues. So suffering is symptom is suffering, discontent and unsatisfactoriness. And then he put it to cause is grasping desires, sensual pleasures, becoming, getting rid of self-centered cravings. And then prognosis is good news. It's curable. so so and then the methodology or medicine is the Eighth Noble Fold Path. So we talked about what is suffering in the first talk, and one is birth, aging, death, sickness, death, and then separating from the loved one, also meeting one you hate, that's another one, and then not getting what you want, and then getting also attachment to 5 skandhas, which is form, like body, anything intangible, well, not tangible, but sensation, attachment to sensation, like pleasurable sensation, or perception, attachment to your view, how you see it, and then also mental formation. Mental formation is like a thought, feelings, and then consciousness is attachment to consciousness is awareness of all skandhas. So, and the second talk, I talked about the cause of suffering, origin of suffering. So, origin of suffering is attachment to all these desires. So, Buddha categorized three category for desires, and so one is sensual pleasure. So any like sensual experience that will give you a pleasurable experience, like food, could be music, movie, or could be nature, or could be experience of like shopping, like those kind of like you feel sensory gratified. That's one category. And then so another one, second one is a desire to become something or somebody. It's like ambition or attainment. You want to become like an ideal person, or you want to get a title or position, or job, or could be a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, or baby, so those like I want to be a good mother or good father or something, to become something you're not you're not right now. So that's another desire. And then third desire is be categorized as a desire to get rid of. This is like, you should or shouldn't, that you always think of like the way you see things. So like a negative feelings, you want to get rid of negative feelings. Maybe you want to get rid of depression, sadness, anger. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be sad. So that kind of like a really trying to push away your experience. That's another strong desire. Could be a person who thinks that's the problem. This person should go. So, or situation. If I'm not in this situation, I'll be happier. So I want to get rid of this situation. I want to stop this situation, or this whole world should be peaceful, and then I'm so mad because it's not peaceful. It's a whole like violence is happening everywhere, and I'm so angry about it. I want to get rid of this. That's another kind of desire. So it's like your mind is complaining, complaining this and that, and they want to get rid of. That's another kind of desire. So you can think of these kind of like three category of desires, and then maybe you can see like which one you're more, you have tendency to have attachment to one of these three desires. So I think like my case is probably like I want to get rid of, so that's like so we've been having a intensive like a 10 days lecture series by Todo-san Okumura Roshi, and then we talked about Menzan's Jiju Zanmai, lecture on Jiju Zanmai. So, and then in the lecture, we talked a little bit about the angry God. There's so six realms of, and then so this like separated with, so there's heavenly realm, and then angry God, and humans, and then animals, and the hell, and the hungry ghost. I don't remember the order, but anyway, so this like angry God is this like want to get rid of angry, so it could be like a good, like attachment to justice, so that could be like a angry God. So you might have, I probably have this angry God tendency. So, you might have a really strong attachment to maybe object or food, or maybe, you always want to listen music, and then you can't stand silence. That could be one of the strong, desire, and then attachment to that desire. So, so this suffering is the common bond we all share. So everybody suffers in this world because we have this human body, very sensual. We have we are living in a sensual world, and we have the nerves, and then the senses that's very vulnerable to all the stimulants in this world. So everybody suffers, even though, maybe like you think queens or kings or the rich people who have everything, you think they might not suffering, but which is not true. They could, feel suffering too. And then you can see like sometimes like these unfortunate event like famous rich people, and then it seems like they have everything, but they sometimes ended up killing themselves, like commit suicide. So not everybody is immune. Not anybody is immune to suffering in this world. So that's so we can understand. We can be compassionate to other people's suffering because we all suffer. So it's important. The phrase that's how we practice with suffering is instead of I am angry or I am sad, I'm depressed. So instead of that, Buddha's recommendation is we'll phrase it. This is like a skillful means. We phrase it like there is suffering, there is sadness, there is anger, there is depression, or there's this dark mood. We can't really put the finger on it, but there's something dark, dark. There's something dark mood is coming up in me. So instead of completely like identified with suffering, you have a little bit more objective, make it a little bit, little space with your suffering. So that's one helpful way of seeing this suffering. And then because we will always like this we are attaching to this I. So I, this body and mind, and then it could be like your feelings as a my feeling. This is my emotion, my thoughts, and then me. This is me as a story of myself. This is I'm a Japanese. I'm a Buddhist monk, or I came from Japan, and then so those kind of stories attached to it. So then you creating the self, and then you creating a story of self, how I suffer because because I am very righteous. This is right. I want to make a peace in the world. I want to help people, and then so that's I. So that is part of the the causing suffering to perpetuate. So we have this assumption of I, and then you think this is obviously this is body and mind. I have this this is me, so that's the common assumption we have. So but Buddha's teaching is we sort of investigate this assumption. There's really me or I behind this. Is anybody operating like a Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, operating this body and mind? So we will investigate this assumption, because that's the root cause. This is 3 marks of existence that Buddha taught. One of them is no self. So no self is really, it seems like really hard to understand to most of the people. And then I had a hard time understanding too. When I started the meditation practice, how long ago? Like maybe 25 years ago. And then my first meditation retreat was Vipassana retreat. So that was 10-day Vipassana retreat by Mr. Goenka. And then I did 10-day retreat in Kyoto, Vipassana Center. And then I had no idea what meditation is. And then when I decided to go, because there was a long holiday week in Japan. It's always May. They call it Golden Week, and then so people will go to like a long trip vacation, and then I just broke up with my long-term boyfriend. So I was miserable. I have nowhere to go, and then my friend invited me to go to this meditation retreat. And then I was like, okay, I'll go, So, and then my father was, oh yeah, it's good, you need the meditation. And then he never done meditation in his life. But anyway, so I went to, meditation retreat, not knowing what meditation is. And then, so for the 10 days, because I just broke up with my boyfriend, I cried every day, all day long. And then also, this might happen like first time meditator, like a lot of like past emotions and thoughts and feelings, come up. And then so for the 10 days, I was crying about my breakup. Also, I was crying about my difficult relationship with my family. So that came up, and I just cry for 10 days. And then, so I felt like, oh, I feel like I got this meditation. So I thought I was, I'm cured. So I told the teachers, there were a couple who were conducting this 10-day course. I think there were 30 people sitting. And then I told these teachers, there was like a little interviews to check in, how your experience of this retreat. And I told them, wow, I got this meditation. So I'm cured. So they were kind of like, what can I say to you? So they were like, And then also I met after the 10 days complete silent meditation retreat. So you don't read, you don't talk, and then you don't even make eye contact with other people. So after 10 days, we start talking, and then I met some people like who done this retreat for like maybe twice, 3 times, so they were saying, oh, this is my second time, this is my third time. And I was saying, what, you didn't get it for first time? So I was so ignorant. So anyway, so that was my first meditation. So if I know some of you might just did the first meditation today, so congratulations. And then so if it's very difficult experience, it's gonna get better. So don't give up. Anyway, so what I'm talking about, forgot. So the second second meditation retreat, I forgot. So, okay, so after the first meditation retreat, I thought, oh, even though I probably didn't quite get the meditation right, but I still felt, oh, meditation's good. But I was working in a TV industry at the time, so my my life was really busy, so I didn't really have enough sleep, like maybe 4 hours sleep sometimes, and then I felt like, oh, I'm so lucky to have a 4 hours of sleep. That was my life. So I didn't really have a time for meditation, I thought. So I didn't do it, and then for 5 years I didn't do anything. I thought, well, meditation was good, but it's not for me. Um, Maybe some of you feel that way too. But after the 5 years, I had another breakup. So then went to another meditation retreat. So it's more like confession and repentance this time. So yeah, my friend was saying, my friend who took me to the first retreat, meditation retreat, saying, well, Kiku, it doesn't work. You just go to meditation retreat every time you break up. It's like, well, but I didn't know what else to do. So I went. But the second meditation retreat, I kind of like, it stuck with me. So since then, I've been sitting constantly, regularly. For the second meditation retreat, so there is a Dharma talk every night. So I think it's a little different, So we have our tradition is that there's no service, no ritual, no Dharma talk, nothing. So it's called like a no toy style. But Vipassana retreat I went with by Mr. Goenka, there was a Dharma talk every night. So we listened to Dharma talk. He would talk about story of Buddha every night, about like 1 hour, and then also he would do kind of like a guided meditation. It's all recording. So, but one of the recording it said, "There's no you, there's no I, there's no you, there's no self," and I was like, "What?" So I I so this is the same recording of Mr. Goenka's talk. So I heard it for the first time. I went to meditation retreat in Kyoto, but I didn't remember anything because I was probably crying and maybe I was not really listening what he was saying. But second time, I was listening, and then I heard, "There's no you, there's no I." I was like, "What?" So I went to teacher. There was like, you can sign up for the interview, and I went to teacher like, what does he mean by that? What does he mean by there's no you? And then so the teacher was, she can't, she couldn't really explain. It's well, you see, you see more. So, yeah, so it's not like you get the teaching of no self, and okay, so I believe you, there's no self. So it's not like that. So Buddha always said, like, they just investigate, by yourself, so he will give teaching, but you have to discover for yourself. So um so like so it says like 5 skandhas. This body is made of body mind as a 5 skandha that I explained before as a, what was the 5 skandha? Form, body, and then five skandha. Where was five skandha? Oh yeah, right. Form, body, and then at the sensation, perception, mental formation, thoughts, consciousness. So these are all, we are made of that, but because all of them, every single of them, it's also impermanent. So everything arises and ceases. Everything arises and ceases. You can't really hold on to it. So that's, impermanent nature of ourself. So you can't really say this is me, this is ourself, myself, because everything is constantly changing. You used to be a little, baby. Now look at you. Like you have full grown body. So it's I think that all the cells are changing. I heard like every 7 days or something. It's just constantly changing. So your body is changing, and you can't really say this is my body, because it's changing. And then the feeling, also sensation always, also like comes and goes. You don't always have like same sensation, so you can't really say this is me, this is my, sensation. It's always changing. And then perception. So your perception always change too, like because you think, okay, I think I will like this, I will support this one, I will support this person, and then, or I believe this, the philosophy or the law, but then something happened, and then, wait, that wasn't right. So then you switch, your perception changes constantly. So, or like, you're seeing from, just basically you're seeing from this side, and I'm seeing this view, and if I stand from the other side, my view is completely different. So perception always also changing. So you can't really say this is my view. It's not, it's not concrete. And then so also the mental formation, thoughts you probably know, always changing. Like you think you like this person, and then this person will do something you don't like, and you're like, oh, I don't like that person anymore. It's just very quickly, you can just no more this person, I don't like you. So that happens a lot. And then so you can't really hold on to that, and then so awareness of these all skandhas also changing. So you can't really say there's entity, or you can, when you do zazen, when you do meditation, and then you're just sitting quietly, just looking at the wall, and then keep dropping your thoughts. You're, whenever thoughts comes in, you're letting go, and then you're just sitting quietly in upright posture and breathing. And then you can see, like, at that moment, you don't really need a sense of I to just be. And then you can investigate. I mean, we do just sitting, so it's not like you're thinking about that, but you can sense it. So I mean, don't take my words for real. So you can investigate, you can sit for yourself and then see how you feel, how you senses yourself, sense of self. Is it really there? Is it, is this me, do I need to be me or I to be here? So I think it's kind of like because we are taking this assumption too seriously in a way. So that's kind of like one of the reasons we suffer so much. So the recommendation is our attitude is open and receptive, and then reflect. So that's I'm looking for my clock. Great. Yeah. So and then contemplate these conditions as, is this our suffering? So this suffering arises. This any kind of like a desire arises, and then cling to desire. So desire itself is not a problem. If we cling to it, that's the suffering. So desire can come and go. You can see it yourself. If this desire is going to stay forever, I think probably not, but you can try, okay, well, wait a second, I was so hungry, and then now I was doing something like, like maybe I was hungry for like ice cream or chocolate, and then but I was doing something else, and then forgot about that, hunger for chocolate, or you ate chocolate actually, then of the so then it's gone, so the but so you can see like how desires comes and go. Maybe you wanted to become an astronaut and then maybe that desire somehow disappeared. Maybe it's always changing. So you can see, like, if you don't attach to the desire just arises and ceases. And then, so whenever you attach to desire, that's you suffer, because you think this is this clinging, either like, either clinging, it's all clinging, but it's like pushing away also. That's also another one, the pushing away, like desire to get rid of. So if you don't, desire itself is not a problem. So you can reflect and then open and receptive to your suffering. So you can experiment if my tendency to attach this particular desire, is it making me happy? It's like, okay, I want to listen music, and I want to, so constantly, oh, okay, this music, another music, and then you keep listening, and then so my case is sort of like, I like music too, but so before I went to a 6 months monastic training in Tassajara Zen Mountain Center in California. So there's no Wi-Fi, there's no phone. I mean, you could use phone, and it is, but it's, you know, there's like, you only have like a 2 hours of break every day, and then maybe every 4 days there's a little more time. So you really don't have much time. So you don't have time to do email or talk to any friends or family. So it's like really limited. So I thought, well, maybe I just need to bring a lot of music. So I downloaded a lot of music on my cell phone. So I thought I could listen. So that's, I felt like, you know, so when I was downloading like a lot of music, I felt like it's almost like a, you know, felt like hungry ghost, like more, I need this one. There's another one I want to listen. So I downloaded a lot of music like a day before I leave to the meditation retreat, the monastic retreat. But then when I went there, I didn't listen any of them. So it's sort of like I was, you know, attached to the idea I need music, you know, but actually I didn't. So also like I was more annoyed, like music started happening in my head when I do zazen. So you can sort of like question, is this desire making me really happy, or is this desire necessary for me right now? So it's not like um, you know, restrict yourself with idea of, oh, desires are bad, don't cling to any desire, but you can experiment what desires you're attaching to. Is this desire making me, or attaching to this desire making me happy or not happy? So so also another thing is when you notice, so the recognizing is the first step, like recognizing when you are suffering, like when you started to feel like could be, you know, overt or covert, you know, very minor slight irritation or mood, you know, or could be like really like a big, you know, like emotional experience, like makes you really sad or angry. So this is invitation to sort of open to your experience of suffering, to allow it more. It's not indulging it, but it's more like allowing to your suffering to be what it is, and then how it is, and then just to sort of like you know, so there is this experience of suffering, there is anger, but you can be completely open and then allow it to be there, instead of like struggling to wrestle wrestle with it to ground. Just let it be if you can, and then see how it happens, you know. So the your openness to things as it is, that will be really helpful. Openness and receptive. You don't have to like control. You have to let things to be as it is. It takes you you allowing to cease. You're allowing to cease according to the nature. So eventually, you know, the suffering will arise, and then eventually ceases. But so if you don't have a patience, if you don't let it cease, you will keep, you will keep the suffering alive for longer than you want. So this is kind of like a probably most difficult thing, like because you you can't stand it. So um, so so this is because it's difficult, because like suffering could be very boring. I mean, the peace is boring and not exciting, and hard to recognize and value. So that's why it's so difficult, because we are so attached to stimulant. We are living constantly, our mind always focusing on something, not the space. So if so if keep focusing on this, the something arises, and if you don't have a space to arise and cease, you just keep focusing on it. So you will sort of like let your view a little bit wider and then softer, so then you'll be able to see arise and ceasing of this nature. But so because this world is always like constantly asking you to stimulate yourself, and then like all these like media is asking you to buy more, watch more, listen more, get more information. So constantly asking you to do more, get more. So that's completely opposite from what we're trying to do, just to see, like you don't need to add anything more to yourself. So this is sort of invitation to, so going against the current of the world. Once I was told, like my friend, I'm not shopping enough. Because I thought that, well, I have enough, my t-shirt has a holes in it, but I can still wear it. But so according to her, you have to buy more. So like stimulate the business, and then help the world that way. Is like, yeah, I don't know that's going to help the world, but anyway, so you can experiment to see like how you can recognize how your world is trying to get you more, and then having more like a quiet time or stillness or sitting zazen. It's because of that. It's because it's difficult, but if you don't try it, you don't really know how how suffering comes and goes. So this is like really encouragement to zazen. So zazen is our teacher. So I think that's, yeah. So that zazen is really helpful to a helpful practice to train ourselves to see how the nature is working. So because when you're sitting, you don't really have to do anything. One of my friend asked me like, so when you do meditation, what do you do? And then I said, oh, we're not doing anything. And said, what do you mean you don't do anything? So but basically you just sit, facing wall, and just just observing breath. There's a breath happening, and then upright posture. Keep your eyes open, and just opening your hands of thought, and then keep, when thought comes, drop, so that's what we do. And then, but that in the process of Zazen, you will sense something, that's something arises. Maybe you are angry at somebody before you start meditation, and then maybe, you might come back again and again, but sometimes you just, oh, I'm not thinking about the person, the thought is gone. You're not necessarily trying to stop the thought, but it happens. So I would strongly recommend to do Zazen practice. And then, it might be hard to do 50 minutes. We do 50 minutes. So you can start like, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes regularly, and then, train yourself. And then there will be a getting started this Tuesday. We'll do meditation instruction. So please come and see. So I think that's, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough. Thank you. Okay. Not difficult question, easy one. I'm a baby.
So anybody, please. Yeah, you're welcome.
What's your name?
Michael.
Michael.
Thank you for your talk, first of all. I wonder that earlier you were saying when we have almost these feelings of suffering, it's important to let them come up and almost express themselves how they must until it's time for them to go, and then they will go. But at the same time, when I think about Zazen and when I think about meditation, and those thoughts come to me, I have like almost a knee-jerk reaction to just like drop it, let it go. But I feel like that's almost not letting it express itself, that's letting it go. So it makes me wonder, like just that kind of strange opposite effect, and I was curious your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, so my question is, so does it work? You do that?
Oh yeah, I suppose it does, but I'm not sure if it works long term or just for the moment. I'm not knowledgeable enough on myself to truly answer that.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like a expressing. Not sure like what you meant by expressing itself. Let it express itself. So it's so like when we are letting like a dropping, it's not like a forcing to drop. So it's more like a like holding on to pen, and you realize this holding on is causing suffering. So you can just put it down, lay it down like softly. But I'm saying like this might come back, and then you go, oh, I'm holding it again, and then put it down, down. So that's what we do in meditation, Zazen. So this sometimes like you have a story attached to it, so then you can put it down, and then okay. So more you do Zazen, you can let go of the story about this and then so just you can see it just could be this feeling of anger. All the stories are gone, but still I have the sensation of anger. So that so then it's not the person or the situation causing me to have anger, but it was in me. And so then the process is just putting down, not like pushing it away, because pushing it away will perpetuate more. So putting down gently and lay it down, and then so it's not trying to get rid of, So more like a spacious, experience, putting down. So that it's zazen, the meditation is when we do meditation, it's much easier than because when we're just sitting, but it could be harder because it could be more vivid your experience. Yeah. So it's not like indulging, So it happens, and then we're putting it down, let it down, lay it down gently in a way. So then eventually this will lose the power of holding you, and then you can, open your hand again and again. So that we were invited to do million times of opening hand. That's our practice.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions, comments in the room?
A hard one.
Oh.
I don't know the answer either. So I think one thing that I found interesting when I started practicing in this tradition, in Zen, is like when you read Dogen and Menzan and these people, it seems like they don't often mention the Four Noble Truths that much, whereas when you're first learning about Buddhism generally, it's always mentioned as like this kind of fundamental thing. So I guess part of my question is, why do you think that there's like less of an emphasis on Four Noble Truths in our tradition? And maybe like the first thing that comes to mind for me is maybe it has to do with this, tendency in our tradition to focus less on actually eliminating suffering, but more kind of seeing it as suffering as sort of not separate from the true reality that we're trying to awaken to. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about kind of these first two noble truths, like in a Dogen Zen kind of context.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Dogen. Yeah, I thought about that too. So probably Todo-san can answer. No?
Wait, you have to say something.
Well, yeah, I think it's. I think you answered to your question too. Like the suffering is part of, part of our life. So there is suffering, and then. So because this is the nature of this, our life is always, because we are as essential, beings, it's always like incomplete, essentially, and also nature of imbalance, it's always incomplete and unsatisfactoriness. That's the nature of life. Dogen did not focus on this because the suffering is part of what did you say? Life.
Well, I mean, I think the idea that like samsara and nirvana are not separate, right? Maybe.
Yeah, samsara and nirvana. Yeah, well, yeah, I think you're right. So samsara and nirvana is not separate. So yeah, it's not like when we die we go to nirvana like heaven, but it could be here and now. So yeah, I don't really know why he didn't talk about Four Noble Truths. But I think you were onto something.
Well, it's interesting how, in the beginning of your talk, you started out by explaining how Buddha was a doctor in a certain way, right?
Right.
So we have this problem called suffering, and he's going to make a prescription for how we manage or eventually eliminate our suffering, which feels very personal, right? And then when we consider how Dogen teaches and what he has to say, we don't sort of think of Dogen as making a prescription for our suffering. He's pointing us toward wisdom. He's pointing us toward clearly seeing the operation of the world, and in that, then wisdom and compassion are going to arise sort of naturally because we're seeing clearly. But it's interesting, isn't it, how that's a very different sort of approach. It's like Dogen's project it's not different than Buddha's project, but it's distinct but not separate, right? So it feels very different. So I mean, when you're asking that, my first thought was, well, you started out by explaining how Buddha was a doctor, and yet that's not the way we think about Dogen and his teaching, right? So it's a really interesting shift over time. So yeah, this whole, what is it to be a bodhisattva and to not intentionally not cross over and give up all of our suffering and keep this karmic body in order to stay in the samsaric world and liberate beings is a really interesting part of that question, right? I think you've raised it with us before. Right? I think this is a piece of ongoing discernment for you and therefore for us, because I think you've raised that intersection before, which is really interesting, right? So I hope we keep kind of noodling on that, because I think it's an interesting connection, yeah? Which means we really need to know in this tradition, what were the early teachings like, and then through history, and now what is Dogen doing and what are we doing, because these things are connected, but we don't talk about them the same way. So it's a really interesting question.
Thank you, Roko. And Jeff wants to say something.
Yeah, so, for me, it's starting with your talk, but then Doju's issue, in my perception of this paradox, is that we learn and recognize that suffering is a part of life, but the part that gets mysterious for me is when we just recognize that that's a part of life, and when we find ourselves, or I find myself in some of those situations saying, well, this is the time to act on it. And of course you can't act on every single one, I get that much, but this is where I've been finding that I would love more guidance from the teachers, either the writings or the discussions, to get to a place where I understand better or accept better that I know when to act, and then even more so how to act to be effective and to eliminate some of the suffering. That's where I'm stuck on this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's probably key to when to act and how to act is stands on our openness and receptivity for what it is, as it is. So the wisdom will come from that place instead of the mind. So I don't know about Dogen, Dogen style, and then why he didn't talk about suffering, or he didn't talk about suffering at all. I'm asking Okumura Roshi. He's sitting right in front of me.
It's from Mahayana teaching.
Mahayana teaching.
No suffering, no cause, no birth, no cessation of suffering. That is from the Heart Sutra.
Ah, right. The Heart Sutra. Because the 5 skandhas empty. Okay, go back to the Heart Sutra.
Well, it's
it's interesting too, because like right after this talk, we're going to say the 4 vows, which involves beings are numberless, I vow to free them. So in a sense, still freeing from suffering, freedom from suffering is in these teachings, but it's sort of like, you know, that it feels to me like the emphasis in our practice is on sort of total interconnectedness and dropping the separation. And that separation is what causes suffering. So by sort of dropping the separation between you and someone else, or you and your own suffering, or it sort of frees beings from suffering in a less kind of like, I don't know, maybe a less diagnostic way, where there's a particular sickness and this is what you should do, but sort of like by this very act of continually letting go of separation, I think the same thing is happening. Dogen is just kind of leading us in a different way. That's my thought.
I don't know what current monastic training would be like as far as doctrinal issues like this, like Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 12 Links Causation, all the classical teachings. And I don't really know that much about Soto in particular. My teacher, the Chinese Chan teacher, and the way he's expressed this question to us, and why he does emphasize doctrinal teaching for his American students, is he said, you know, this may very well be the case of Dogen in the 13th century, but he's coming from, you know, more like Tang Dynasty and Song Dynasty classical Chinese teachers who also didn't mention a lot of the classical doctrinal teachings. But he said, you know, they were by and large speaking to monks and nuns who had already been educated in the basics of the doctrine, and so they were speaking from an activity point of view. How do we express this in our practice now? What is the doing part of it? So it's not that wasn't present there, but then, at least for my teacher, we need to understand that part here, so we have a foundation to apply the doing part. So that's the explanation I got. I don't know if that's the case here or not.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
What's your name?
My name's Eddie.
Eddie. Yes. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That's very interesting. I think that's true too. Yeah. Hashin?
Just a comment. You know, I think it's suffering is just a given. It's what life is. It's not all life. And I've heard it in an interesting way as it's not to the end of suffering, but to the dissolution of the one who suffers. So understanding that no separation between things, it kind of leads into that way of thinking about it.
Which returns us to your point about it's not I am suffering, it's there is suffering. You know, there is unhappiness, there is, right? Yeah.
And perhaps thinking of distinction between pain and suffering.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Pain is when I touch a hot stove, it hurts.
Yeah.
Suffering is, shit, I really don't want it to hurt when I touch a hot stove. It should stop hurting, you know. That's probably important.
Yep.
Did you raise hand? Tony?
There's a sort of suffering, I think, that's inherent with all of this, in that the feeling is suffering is bad, it's wrong. And there are some teachers and some teachings who offers temporary relief from this by looking at that attitude itself and trying to help the attitude that suffering is wrong by saying, it's not wrong. I mean, there's a kind of, it shouldn't be here. It's like the doctor, you know, cures a disease. you shouldn't have that disease. We need a doctor to help get rid of it because it's not right to have that disease. But I have heard teachers in situations who emphasize much more, and I guess it puts it back within our realm of reach. It's and then I remember one session I was at, and the Kenhin, it was a Rinzai, that instead of, quiet Kenhin, it was fast. Anyway, we would be going by, and at some time we'd stop, and then we'd stretch, and then one of the things he did was this. We'd bow down, and everything is okay. Everything is okay. And I've heard that in other formats where we needn't, what shall I say, feel bad about feeling bad. Just feel bad. But don't feel bad about feeling bad, because everything is on the universal scale and all that kind of talk is okay. And Suzuki Roshi used to really, when people would fire questions at him, like, with one word, how will you explain the Dharma, or one phrase? And the closest I heard him come up with was acceptance, 101% acceptance. And then take care of it. If taking care of it means reduce the pain, reduce the pain. If you can't do that, well, sit with it, etc., etc. But the notion of a background attitude, seems to me, adds to suffering. And there's part of the teaching is that it's not bad, it's just bad. I mean, it's just, and at least in my case, and people I've been around, that helps. So, it's not really a question, but it's sort of a question. It's like, well, how do you see to this notion of, not necessarily, you try to heal, but if you can't heal, that's okay.
Well, so that's the desire to get rid of. So that's the part you want.
Yeah, you get free from that.
Right. So yeah, you don't want to attach to I have to get rid of this suffering. So that's also another cause of suffering.
Yeah.
Attaching to get rid of. So I think you're right. We don't really we're not trying to no more suffering, and then just live happily ever after, and then but then we'll be so complacent you can't wake up. So we can use suffering as a compost or like a nourishment to wake up too. So we're not trying to get rid of it. We just learn from it, and this is the nature of our life. It just comes and goes, and just see things as it is. I think, like you said. Okay.
I just wanted to add a little. I think it was Stoic philosophers that said we suffer much more in mind than we do in actuality.
I think you're right. You want to say something?
Much more like kind of a technique or like a technological question. Basically, like how to do all this, right? I think that we know when we like sit zazen, we try to do our best to keep the posture, whatever. Like we know how to do this. The not attaching and the kind of just allowing the pain to be there. However, I never know how to express it, so that's why I'm asking. When you say things like, we should try our best not to attach, or create this space, or rephrase from I'm suffering to there is suffering, like just how do you express the actual technique of doing it? Yeah, like just how it's done.
Well, I think that zazen, like a meditation.
I know, but it feels like a dissatisfactory answer when we're trying to actually explain it to someone. It's like, oh, just sit, and they're like, okay, like what does that do?
Well, I mean, I think because it's like this is always to explain this way, like, okay, so the reading the menu is not going to satisfy you. You have to eat the food. So the zazen is our eating food. So we have to taste it. We have to, actually practice zazen and then see it for yourself. Otherwise, you have so much knowledge, that knowledge is not gonna, free you. So, you just have to try a little bit and then see how it goes, and then, but you have to keep at it, I think. Yeah, that's the only way.
It's challenging because I agree. That's kind of my sense too. I think it's challenging because then if someone's curious about zazen or if they're wanting to learn, there's a level of almost like faith that they have to like try it in the first place, right? It's like, and that's I think difficult for me, right?
Right. Well, I mean, it really depending on each person, So even, some people who came to the meditation first time, what made you come here today? And then maybe 20 other people heard about meditation, but they never tried. So I think is it Buddha say that? So it's sort of like we have a different, use the analogy of planting the seed. So it's the seed of Dharma, seed of teaching is planted in the rock. It doesn't sprout.
Jesus.
Right. And then so if the seed of Dharma is planted in like gravel, it would maybe take a little longer to sprout. But if it's seed of the Dharma is planted in the soil already, in a good compost in soil, we put a little bit nutrients in the soil yesterday to our farm. So it will sprout, next day, or, so you never know. So it really depends on each person. So do you feel like you're struggling to, or like you feel struggle to have your friends to sit?
Not exactly. I mean, my partner's been curious, and I've been kind of wondering just how to best express it. And I mean, I think to some extent the best way to express it is just the testimony of the body, right? And like what zazen does for us is the thing I think gives other people faith. I think, which is what I think makes my partner curious in the first place. Yeah, I think I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's sort of like you have to. I've been sitting maybe 20, 25 years, so now I know in my body this works. So, but and also is it Buddha said it or who said it? So this is our talk is continuous mistakes because we are talking about something we're not going to be able to talk about with words. We're talking about something beyond words, before words. So it's impossible. So that's why, the Shakyamuni Buddha said, I can't teach you. So he almost gave up. So, but we have to continue because there might be some people who will be able to practice. So I think the two people raising hands.
So
I hope you can answer to your question.
we have, a work day coming, but I don't know. Maybe we cut it off after. Maybe if we can be brief with our questions. Let's see. Raphael, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Suffering and attachment. Attachment and suffering are linked. But I have one question about suffering. It's suffering recept to grow up. It's necessary to grow up. If I suffer, if I have suffering, maybe can I grow up? No. Sorry, my English is very bad.
I think the question is suffering necessary to grow up, to mature?
Ah.
Thank you.
Grow up to mature, grow. Well, I think it's sort of like a not necessary or necessary. Suffering is here because we all suffer, you know, because as long as we have this sensory body, everybody has, you know, many degree of suffering, you know. So it's not like it's there, and then, but also like, you know, it could be helpful, you know, like because in my case, you know, because of suffering, I started to practice. Because suffering could be, you know, like a prompt for you to, okay, this is too much, you know. I don't want to suffer this anymore. So I want to do something about it. So that's how I entered this path. So suffering could be helpful, you know. So in my case, maybe it was necessary for me to have that experience of suffering. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. You know, my two other sisters are not really. I mean, I wouldn't say they're not practicing. They're not on a Buddhist path, but they could be other paths. So it's not like a Buddhist path. It has to be Buddhist, but. Yes, it is possible. It could be helpful to have a suffering, but also, you know, suffering is nature of our life. So, is that does that answer your question? Does it answer your question?
A little bit, but I'm sorry, I can't explain my thinking in English. So thank you so much.
Okay. You can write to me if you want to, you know, ask more questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'll put Esho's email on her Ongo webpage.
Good idea.
Okay.
Stefan had a question, but it like, you okay? Yes.
It was a question / comment, but I have kind of surrendered it, so it's good.
Okay,
It's good.
thank you.
No suffering.
No suffering.
Okay.
That's a long,
Okay.
Okay.
Wrap after the social.